1. I was assigned to a high school recreational facility a while back on a temporary basis, until they could agree on a more permanent, cost-effective solution, like a heavy-duty fence, because they started having an influx of problems with kids coming in after dark and vandalizing the place, or making love, or just otherwise being a liability. The rule was when the sun went down, the facilities were closed. There was an outdoor track and field and an indoor gym, and locked area plus a couple half basketball courts. Certainly not the most complex assignment anyone's ever had. Sometimes the kids got a little belligerent, and more than a handful of them showed up wasted, but I just flashed my lights. The car had legit sirens back then, and they'd skedaddle. Pretty harmless stuff. But then I had this supremely weird night. A mom, I'm assuming that's what she was, though maybe a sister, she was pretty young, and her kids, approximately 4 and 7, showed up just at the start of my shift and were playing with a light-up frisbee straight through past sunset. I gave them some leeway because they were utilizing the facility for its intended purpose, and it wasn't pitch-black dark yet or anything. But time waned on, and they had had a little picnic, then gone back to playing, so by then, it had gotten way past time I was meant to clear everyone out. I approached them and let them know we were winding her down for the night, so they should plan to be gone within 5 to 10 minutes. The mom was hostile from the get. She just snapped that it was a public property, so they had every right to be there. I explained that public property doesn't mean open to the public 24/7, it just means property dedicated to public use. So if there's an owner, like the government in this case, they can set the rules on when the public can enter. And the public had to observe that property's rules. This went right over her head, and she insisted that would be true for private property but not public property, so I must be confused. She just kept insisting that public property means that anyone can access it at any time. I showed her our clearly posted signs about the hours, but she was having none of it, and just went back about her business. Now, I'm a guy of decent size, so I didn't need to be getting into it with a young mother and her kids. I phoned my supervisor and she gave me the go-ahead to phone the police if I felt it necessary. So, trying to be a good guy, I let her know if she wasn't gone in 5 minutes, police would be called, because for everyone's safety it was my job to clear the property at night. She didn't respond, didn't acknowledge me, just kept tossing this glow-in-the-dark frisbee to her kids like a game of catch in the dark was totally normal at that hour. Or at all. Cops were called. They responded pretty quick, under 10 minutes, because this does get to be a shady area after dark, so they are plenty around, working. But between when I called them and when they arrived, the mom and her kids just disappeared. I was tracking them from the visual glow-in-the-dark frisbee, and I guess it went on and off with a switch card, because all of a sudden it switched off, and they were ghosts. I explained it to the police, and we agreed their imminent arrival likely scared the group off, and that was that. I went back to pacing around, not even 5 minutes after the police had left. This family is back. I dropped any hint of reasonable nice guy at this point and said assertively as I could, "Ma'am, you are now trespassing and I am going to call the police again." And whatever else, this was too long ago to remember specifics. So as embarrassing as it was, I had to call my supervisors and let her know these people were back. She called the GM because it's so rare to have to make 2 cop calls in under half an hour. I don't think either of us had to come up against it in a non-violent, non-medical situation like this before. We ended up getting the go-ahead, but I was directed to basically apologize profusely because of how incompetent this made our whole shift appear. But the police were nice about it and just turned around and headed our direction again. I followed the family closer this time, not letting them out of my sight. But before the police arrived, they piled into a car and drove off. I didn't get close enough in time to see the plate, and it wasn't a spot with the CCTV coverage. I called back and they laughed it off, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Half an hour later, there they were again, playing frisbee with their lights switched on again like nothing had happened. Now these facilities did have a chain-link fence and padlock. The initial problem was high school kids would climb it without too much difficulty, though the school had security on it until they could decide whether to invest in upgrading the fence or doing something else. But there was no way this woman was climbing it with these 2 small kids and I wasn't noticing. To this day, I have no idea how they got in there. I spent the following night looking for missing panels or even holes, and there were none whatsoever. So I called back, but they pulled their disappearing act again before the police arrived. The police were nice enough to poke around the area, looking for them with me, and to hang out for a while to see if they returned. But they also made it pretty clear that this was the last time they'd be out there tonight for this matter, regardless of what else happened, or if they returned again, unless someone was in jeopardy. But the family seemed to have gone for good this time, so I figured it was a non-issue. Ha! Nope, they were back, and they scuttled around until my shift ended at 5:30 a.m. I often think back to this and wonder what they were doing there. They really didn't appear homeless, and I asked more than once if they had a place to sleep for the night, or if they needed some kind of help. I got nothing back. Not from the mom or the kids. I will forever wonder what their all-night frisbee crusade was about, but I will never know. If you have any theories, please clue me in. This drives me crazy trying to figure it out. They didn't come back again, at least not as long as I was assigned there, a few more months. 2. This is about a coworker I had from a few years ago. He was an interesting guy to work with, the kind that kept you on your toes because you just had no idea what he would decide to do next. For the purpose of this tale, we'll call him Muppet. So Muppet and I got hired at this site at the same time. Good place to work, government site, and we were employed directly by the government agency instead of being subcontracted. Owing to my commitments at the time, I couldn't start working there for about a month. When I did start, though, I'd do the sensible thing and ask the other guy who had started 3 weeks earlier if he had any tips, and he said, "There is 2 things you need to know. First, get yourself one of those retractable keyring things that attach to your belt. I kept walking into buildings and putting the keys down, and it took me ages to find them again. And the other thing is how to fill out a timesheet. You put your start time here, your finish time here, and then you wait. Maybe you put your start time over there. Where do you put hours worked?" "Sure," I said. "Thanks, Muppet. I better go see my trainer." And I left him trying to figure out how the timesheets were supposed to be filled in. Couple of red flags there, I thought, but maybe he was just trying to be funny. I figured I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. That didn't even last an hour, as I learned 2 other things. My training officer told me that on Muppet's first week he'd called in sick on the 4th day, as he was too tired after the first 3 days and needed a day off. The second thing was he'd taken the main key set home with him, and we needed to get it back. Over the next month, we quickly learned that the person on shift after Muppet needed to go around and make sure that everything that was supposed to be locked was locked, and everything that should be open was open. Anybody on shift with Muppet generally tried to stay as far away from him as they could. We also learned that Muppet could not complete any paperwork more complicated than writing a post-it note, something that, to my eternal amusement, our team leader tried to fix. My team leader pulls Muppet aside and tries to explain the correct way to write an incident report. After 10 minutes, just as our team leader was starting to feel he'd managed to get his message across, Muppet looked up and said, "I better get my glasses. I'm having trouble hearing you." And he wandered off. The look on the team leader's face was priceless. About a week after this, Muppet was working in the security office. He received a phone call. The caller was trying to relay some important information, and Muppet, correctly, judged it should go to the boss. Rather than transferring the caller through to the boss or taking a message, Muppet told the caller that they would have to call the boss, and hung up on them. When asked why he did that, Muppet claimed he didn't know how to transfer calls, so the boss tried to teach him. For 40 minutes. A couple of days after that one, the other guy spent 20 minutes trying to show him. To the best of my knowledge, he still didn't know how to transfer calls 8 months later when he left. When he did finally leave, myself and one of my colleagues were talking at the start of his shift, just the usual, "Remember when Muppet did that" sort of thing. It turned out that in the year Muppet was with us, he did that much stupid stuff that we could spend an entire shift swapping Muppet stories and still not have covered everything. With that in mind, I'll list some of the more extreme Muppet failures. First week he was assigned to the front gatehouse. He dismantled the gate control system because he didn't think it was working properly. It took the techs 2 days to put it back together. Once he found it difficult to plug something into a wall socket. He sent an email to everyone suggesting that we lubricate the power points before use. He refused to respond to a fire alarm until he had finished his coffee and cake. He was the only member of the security team on site at the time. Whilst on gate duty, he was found asleep numerous times. For some inexplicable reason, he once decided to remove his pants while he was on gate duty. The gatehouse had a double glass sliding door, and he was clearly visible to anyone on the road outside the site. One of the site staff saw him while she was picking up her children. One day, while he was opening a rather solid gate that slid along rails, he managed to not only knock it off the rails, but stand next to it and watch it fall on him. He managed to lock himself inside some of the buildings with stunning regularity. Usually because after he'd enter, he'd put the key's fob down on a random surface, and was unable to swipe out until he found them again. 3. This story takes place back in the days of my doing contract security. The scene is an apartment complex located in a college town. The property itself is a big circle with multiple apartment buildings. In the middle of the complex is a 16-floor tower called The Tower. The tower comprises the gym, pool, leasing office, as well as 15 floors of apartments. One night, I was assigned to the region which consisted of this property. I got dispatched out to respond to a noise complaint, which is the usual for this place on the weekends. The apartment in question was in the tower. I use the elevator to go to the floor. As soon as I get off the elevator, I hear loud music coming from the unit in question. Also, the floor reeks of marijuana. I have to knock like 10 times before someone finally opens the door. I ask to speak to the leaseholder. He comes to the door and I explain that I'm gonna have to shut the party down due to the complaint. Surprisingly, they apologize and say they will shut down right now. Within minutes, people are leaving the party. Now, before I continue, let me explain how small these apartments are. They are 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, dining room combo, and a kitchen. It also had a balcony. I count upwards of 250 people leaving this small place. People attempt to leave with open containers, but I make them throw them away due to law. I allow them to take the closed stuff. Once the apartment is mostly empty, I decide to go downstairs to check on everyone who left. To my surprise, the 250 plus people have now moved the party to the lobby of the tower. I warn them they need to leave the property or police will be called. At this point, they vacate the tower and spread out across the property. I start hearing car alarms going off, loud music, and loud voices from the people. I decide to call police and have them help me clear the property. Like 20 police officers show up to help me vacate. The police also contacted a few cab companies for the drunk people to have a safe ride off the property. Surprisingly, no arrests were made, but the leaseholder was evicted later that week for violating the policy. 4. Hi there. This may be an unusual story, but one I hope you all may enjoy. I'm working a seasonal post for a private security company. My husband and his mother both work here, and they finally talked me into jumping on board for the summer. So for visual reference, I'm a rather dashing female security officer that is friendly but can get serious in seconds if needed. I work for a school district, so this is my summer job. Weird to say when you're a full-grown adult, but I love it. I'm posted working, looking over boat docks at a marina. I can't say where for obvious safety reasons. I can say I work the graveyard shift, so it's just myself, the raccoons, ducks, and the spiders. Oh, hell. Spiders. More on that later. On to how I saved a boat. I was just coming on and my orders are to check all the docks. Make sure people are supposed to be there to sign in and out, boats are properly tied to the dock, deter trespassers by literally existing, etc. A storm was rolling in, and the wind was picking up, and I saw a boat freely drifting around between dock zones. That wasn't right. I call for help. Naturally, do my documentation, then see it was starting to drift further down. Wanting to try helping to save some headache, I ran down the adjacent dock it was drifting closer to, probably through spider webs, and I caught it on the nose. There was a bar thing on the boat, I was able to grab it. If you have ever seen Captain America Winter Soldier, you know that scene where Steve Rogers grabbed hold of that helicopter in one hand and the railing of a building in the other? Yeah, that's what it looked and felt like on a much smaller scale. If I hadn't, it could have gotten damaged along with the surrounding boats. Every boat there is worth more than my car. I held it for as long as I could as the park rangers arrived and flashed their lights at me. Unfortunately, I was forced to let go, as the wind and water current was forcing the boat to drift in dangerously close to the motor blades of another boat. It could have gotten scratched to hell, so I had to let it go. I had at least made it so where it wouldn't hit anything else. The next hour I helped the park rangers with their rescue boats once they caught it before hitting the edge of the lake, move it back into an assigned dock slip. No soon, a few minutes later, it started to hail and pour down rain. I couldn't stop myself from laughing, because it almost felt like the entire thing was timed like in a movie scene. I'm so glad we rescued the boat just before the storm, and the head park ranger was thankful I was there to alert them of an emergency. The supervisor who hired me gave me a lot of praise and told me I have potential to go far in the company. He seemed mildly frustrated that I'm only working for the company for the summer. I was hired specifically for this post. I've gotten more than one instance complimenting my work. I show up every night and do my job. They really like the fact that I didn't, like others they've hired, quit their first night. I just feel proud of myself for saving a boat Captain America style, but that's irrelevant to the story. On to the Spider-topia. There is only one serious problem I have with this post. I can deal with the raccoons that growl at me and get into the trash. What I struggle dealing with is walking into spider webs every 5 steps. It rained for an entire week, so as the people were gone, spiders have taken over. I can't count the sheer number I'm surrounded with, but I can guess over 1,000. They are everywhere. I have to take a broom with me and wave it like a crazy person when I inspect the docks. I walk into the flying single strings of webs simply walking around the open space. I literally cannot go anywhere in this entire dock without putting up with a spider or a spider web. I think I've gotten webs stuck in my mouth before. Bugs have tried getting in my nose and I could just scream. I put down a box of Lysol wipes to sanitize door handles. 30 minutes later, spider decided to string butt rope. A giant one hitched a ride on me, got in my car, then began making its nope rope on my dashboard. I had to use an umbrella to relocate it. Then, the disoriented fecker, unhappy of his eviction, decided to follow me. It feels like that weird forest in The Hobbit. Spiders. Thousands of them. Everywhere. Most of them are harmless, but so infuriating. Except one. It's an orb spider. He hangs around the very front gate. I named him Norbert. Norbert is a good spider. He knows not to climb on me. If you can't tell, I'm slightly traumatized by this post. I mean, last night, 7 a.m., I'm nocturnal now, I dreamt I was at work fighting a raccoon over a jar of pasta sauce. Truth be told, this job is cool, save for the spiders. I just love my primary job more. If I ever, God forbid, get laid off or fired, I can see myself working security as a new career. It gives me some peace of mind knowing this option is here. 5. For context, my post was at a ski resort. I was tasked with patrolling the community during the day in the off-season, which is most of the year. I wasn't watching over the ski resort itself, but rather all the properties that aren't the resorts. That basically means I'm there just to watch over the community that lives there year-round. I'm essentially a stand-in police officer with absolutely zero authority or power, with only a small plastic flashlight, a company phone, the size and processing power of a brick, and the company truck to defend myself if things ever go wrong. Luckily, this story doesn't go in that direction. Now on to the actual story. I get a call in the mid-afternoon from a woman who lives with her 2 children. I later found out that her husband works out of town. She explains that she saw a man in front of her house last night. Understandably, that'd make anyone worried. I told her I'd be right there to get more details. I was half expecting to make a report and take pictures of some vandalism or property damage. Instead, I see just a normal house in a gated community, with the lady outside waving me over. She explained that she saw a man walk up to her house, and stared at it for 15 or so minutes and walked away. She knows this because it tripped the security camera that was on her front porch and invited me in to see for myself. I agreed, and once inside she showed me her tablet and pulled up the feed from the night before. The timestamp was around 2:30 or something, and sure enough this moderately thin man in what I could guess is some athletic shorts, shirt, and a sweater steps into view, stops in front of her house and just stood there and stared at the house. She fast-forwarded the feed and it was just completely creepy seeing it go 2 times or 4 times speed, and the guy doing absolutely nothing but swaying a bit here and there. The white pupils, because infrared camera, really added to that creep factor too. After around the 15-minute mark, the guy turns back from where he came from and walks out of the frame. There was a jolt of realization, or waking up, snapping out of it. He just turned around and away, as if he was programmed to do so. And then he does it again about half an hour later. This time he stares at the house for 10 minutes, walks up to the house and out of frame for 20 seconds or so, and then goes back to in front and stares at the house again for another 10 minutes, and then walked away for the final time. From the angle of the camera and where he was walking when he approached the house, we could assume he might have gone to the rock bed next to the house to either rearrange or pick up some stones. Things is, the stones are just that, stones. They aren't special or in a certain arrangement, just some random stones that are pretty much found everywhere around the community. Suffice to say, we were both creeped out by this. I explained that I'd write a report about it and increase our patrols in the area, but also had to apologize that there wasn't much else our security team could do about it. She understood and was at least thankful. I gave her the local non-emergency police number and suggested that the police, who are an hour and a half away, should at least have it in their reports too. Since security and police are very different, my report goes to my client, and usually that's where it stays. So, as I told her, I increased my watch over the area and made sure the night shift did as well. Neither the guys on night shift or the lady ever saw it happen again. My best bet is some guy took a bit too much of something he shouldn't have, and just wandered the streets in the middle of the night. Regardless, it was pretty damn disturbing to watch the guy just standing there menacingly. Just to walk away, for no apparent reason. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Insecurity, number 3. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do boop the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and possibly throw some ice water at me because I am melting. I'm melting. Okay, we're all melting really, aren't we? I just wish I could get out and enjoy it more, but anyway, whatever. Right, I have a birthday shout out to do. This one goes, this is actually from Lovely 106, and it goes out to Bill. So, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say both their names, but she did tell me that her partner's name is Bill, her husband's name is Bill. Well, actually, yes. Okay. This comes from Evelyn. All right. There we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bill. Happy birthday to you. And I hope Evelyn is going out of her way to spoil you on your birthday, because everyone should get spoiled on their birthday. Have a very good day, and I hope you're able to enjoy the weather, Bill. Alright, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, Thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.